And welcome back to Love Your Food. This week we're doing a nice dessert recipe for you. We are going to be doing cheesecake two ways. You can see here we've got one with a chocolate crust and some chocolate mixed through, and one that's just a plain cheesecake. And really simple. You do need springform pans for these because of the way they come out, but we're going to get going with our ingredients. So we've got some cream cheese. We're going to be using some butter, some sour cream, some sugar, and some eggs and vanilla, and that's for the cheesecake filling. And then for the crusts, for the chocolate ganache, there's going to be some heavy cream and some baker's chocolate, and then the crusts are going to include some almonds. This is graham cracker for the plain one, and these are just chocolate cookies. These are actually Oreos without the middle for the chocolate crust. So we're going to start by making our crusts because they need to bake first. So we're going to put those into the food processor. And these are just graham crackers, so we're going to burr those up for a little while, and make sure they're good and smooth and nice small crumbs. And we're just going to go until they're quite fine. Really small crumb in there. And it's okay if you still have a few lumps in there at this time. We're just going to scrape, make sure that there's nothing stuck to the bottom or any like big pieces left. And you can see that mostly it's down to the right size. Just going to give it a last little burr here. And then we're going to start adding some sugar and some butter to this. So first thing is a little bit of sugar. All of the amounts are going to be in the description below. And then some of that butter we showed you at the beginning, just a little bit. Now we've melted this in the microwave, and we're just going to add a little bit of the butter to the mixture. So once that's all in there together, you can see the sugar and the butter. We're going to burr that back up until it's all well combined, and the fat especially has been well combined with all of the graham cracker crumbs. You can see it's a little different texture now. It's all very fine still, but it sort of holds its shape when you poke it with that wooden spoon. Now here's a neat trick for, we're going to line our springform pans with a little bit of parchment paper. So here's an interesting little trick to get a very close approximation to the right size of circle without having to draw circles and throw away a whole lot of your parchment paper. So we're going to start by folding this in half. And give it a good crease. Then we're going to fold it in half again. And where it makes that corner, that Chef Caleb's finger is on there, we're just going to keep folding it on that corner, sort of like you're making a paper airplane. We're going to fold it more times. We're just going to keep folding it onto that corner. Until we get to here. Pop that center piece right into the middle of your springform pan bottom. Now these are just these beautiful little mini springform pans to make tiny little cheesecakes. And then just make a little mark on the parchment exactly where you want to cut it. You're going to cut it there, and then you will have almost a circular piece of parchment that is exactly the right size for your springform pan. Very handy little tip. So we've got our almonds. We're going to pop those into the oven for a little while. We just kind of get a little toast on those because those are going to go into the chocolate crust. Meanwhile, we are going to get our plain crust ready. So here we're just making sure that there's no buttery graham cracker crumbs stuck to the bottom of the food processor. Once you've got all that up, we are going to pop that into our springform pan. Now you can do this as deep as you like. We didn't want to go too deep, so we didn't actually use all of it. Now remember, you are going to compress this some, so it is going to get smaller than it looks right now. And you can push it up the sides a little bit if you like. it is sort of automatically going to do that while you're pushing it down. So you don't need to worry about trying to do that, but you want to keep it pretty much level as much as you possibly can. So there you go. We're just going to tap that down with a spoon and make sure it's all pretty flat, good and level. If you want to test how deep it is, you can see you just pop the tip of your spoon down into it, like so. And it'll just give you a good idea of how deep it is. You can fix that up back up. Once that's done, we're going to pull our almonds out. You can see they've got a little bit of color on them. That's just about perfect. And then this is all going to go into our food processor for the chocolate crust. So we've got our de-creamed Oreos. You can use any kind of chocolate wafer cookie for this, whatever you prefer. And we're just going to burr mix this much like we did the graham crackers. So we're just going to blitz that for a little while until it is good and smooth, and once again we have that nice small crumb. And then once we are happy with how small the crumb is, you can still see a few little lumps in there. That's fine. Again, this is going to be burr mixed a little bit more. We're going to continue to blend it once we add the butter and the sugar in there. Now remember, these chocolate cookies do have more sugar in them as well already. So if you prefer it to not be as sweet, you may wish to not add as much sugar. We use the same amount for both. Now in this one, we showed you the original one, or the plain one, we added it without the mechanism going. With this one, we're just going to do it all while it's running. It doesn't really matter, either way works. And then we're going to get our butter going. If it is running when you do this, you'll probably want to stream the butter in a little bit of a slower pace rather than putting it all in one lump. So once that's reached the consistency you want, once again, we're just going to line the bottom of our springform pan. And there we go. So again, we're just going to tamp that down until it's good and flat across the bottom. And once again, you can test how deep it is, and then just press it back down. And that's just about right. So the next stage is we're going to start baking the crusts. So once you've got them both exactly how you like them, we are going to pop those into the oven for a little while, just for a little pre-bake. We want to make sure they're not going to get soggy with the filling, which we're going to start while they're in the while those are in the oven. So we're just using plain Philadelphia cream cheese, regular Philadelphia cream cheese for this. And we're going to start by creaming the cream cheese together with the sugar. Now you can use any kind of cream cheese you prefer. Philly was what we could get easily, so whatever is easy for you to get a hold of where you are. So while that starts to get mixed together, we're going to take our crusts out. You can see just a little bit of color on that graham cracker crust. It's harder to see the color on the chocolate one, but these are just about perfect. Those are done. We're going to scrape everything off of the beater in our mixer here. And then just scrape down the sides and mix up the bottom as well, just to make sure that we're getting all of that cream together and we're not leaving any chunks or anything unmixed. So once you've got everything off the beater and off your scraper, we're going to put that back in. And it is time to add the sour cream. we're just going to mix that in. This is going to add a really nice smooth texture to everything. If you're noticing that your cream cheese is lumpy, or once you added the sugar, some lumps formed, this will actually help smooth it all out because it's going to add a little bit of liquid in there. So we're just going to get that all blended well together. Now's a great time to add the vanilla. So we're going to use the same filling for both of these cheesecakes, but one of them we're going to just put a little swirl of ganache inside, and we'll show you how to do that as well. So we're going to add the vanilla, and we're going to show you the one ingredient I did forget at the beginning. This is just a little dash of lemon juice. And then we're just going to get this mixed together and make sure it's all well combined. Every once in a while you do want to make sure you go in there and scrape down the sides just to make sure that everything's well combined and you've got everything together. Now you don't want to do this at a really high speed. You don't want to incorporate a whole lot of air, so you're going to keep it on a lower speed of your mixer. You don't want it to be up at a 9 or a 10. A 3 or a 4 is probably about as far as you want to go speed-wise for this. And once again, just stirring everything up, making sure it's all well combined. You can see it's got a really nice silky texture now. Everything looks well combined. It's not particularly fluffy. It doesn't have a whole lot of air incorporated into it at this point, but this is just about ready. This is about the consistency we're looking for. So we're going to add our eggs. So we're adding an egg and a half. We made a half recipe of this. So basically an egg and a half. We did 1 egg and 1 yolk. And then once everything's well combined, one last time, scrape everything off our beater. And this looks just about ready to go. If you feel like it needs a little bit more time, or there are some bits that are not incorporated yet, feel free. You don't want to overmix it. It is possible to make it all sort of dense, but if you feel like it's not all super combined, or you still see some lumps of sugar or anything, you definitely are welcome to give it a little extra time. Now, springform pans are notorious leakers, so we are going to just give it a little protection, a little seal against leaks. So you want to make sure when you're doing this that you're making sort of a cup out of the tin foil. So just bring it up the sides, let it sit on the tin foil and bring it up the side. You can crunch it down on the sides to make sure it's not covering edges or anything. But just so that it makes a cup, you want to make sure that if anything spills out, it's going to spill into the tin foil and not into your oven. Or in the case of these, we're going to be using a water bath. Now, for our ganache, we're going to make a really quick and dirty ganache. We're going to chop up this baker's chocolate. This is unsweetened baker's chocolate. We're just going to give it a good chop. The smaller you make it, the easier it is to melt. So a good small chop for that, and we're just going to add that into our heavy cream that we have just heated up in the microwave. So we're just going to scrape that in. So this is our quick and easy ganache. We're just going to mix that together. And the very, very hot cream is going to melt that chocolate. You can see it starting already. And it doesn't take very long before you get this beautiful dark ganache. We're just going to put that into a piping bag, or in our case, we're just going to pop it into a Ziploc bag and pipe it in swirls inside of our cheesecake. So once that's well combined and it's about the consistency you want, we can go ahead and start assembling. So we're just going to ladle some of the filling into these already pre-baked cheesecake molds. You can see the Ziploc with the ganache in the background. So on the plain crust, we are just going to add the plain ganache, or the plain cheesecake filling. On the one with the chocolate crust, we're going to add some of the filling, and then we're going to pipe some rings of the ganache on there. Now you can do this however you like to get that sort of marble texture, or to get some interest into your cheesecake, to get that chocolate in there, however you like. So here you see Chef Caleb is just making some rings. And then we're going to top that with more of the cheesecake filling. Now, this is not, because we didn't incorporate a whole lot of air, because it's not a really fluffy, frothy mixture, it's not going to inflate a whole lot. This isn't the type of baking, it's not like a souffle, it's not going to increase a huge amount in size. So you can go very close to the top of your springform pan with the filling, and it's not going to cause you problems. So we're just going to move some of that ganache around. We're going to make sure it's sort of mixed in a little bit. You do want to make sure when you're doing this that you're not mixing all the way down to the crust on the bottom. You don't want to disturb your crust. So now we're going to give it a little tap, and then this is going to go into the oven. So this is going to go into our preheated oven, but what we're going to do is pop it on the shelf. And then we have some hot water that we boiled in our kettle, and we're just going to pop that right into the bottom of the water bath here. So we have them sitting on a towel so they don't slide around in the oven while they're in this water bath. They don't slosh anywhere. And this is just going to provide a little bit more even heat and a little bit of moisture for these to cook in. And then that's going to go in, and we'll see those again when they're done. So here we go. We're going to take those out and take a look, and those look just about perfect. You can see they have inflated just a tiny bit, but they haven't broken the bounds of the springform pans, and they will settle back down a little bit. So these are perfectly set, a little tiny bit of a jiggle in the middle, but what we're going to do now is we're going to put these back in the oven. We're going to turn the oven off and leave them in there with the door slightly open until they're pretty much cool. So it took about an hour for them to become completely cool. And there you go. You can see they've shrunk back down. They've even shrunk from the sides a little bit. They are pretty firm, a little bit tender, but they do bounce back when you give them a little poke. So we can now remove them from their tin foil. These are getting close to room temperature. They're still warm, but they're not hot anymore. And they're just going to put those on a rack to cool until they're all the way down to room temperature. After that, we are going to refrigerate them overnight, and here we're picking them back up after we have refrigerated them. So this is the following day. And we've let them sit overnight in the fridge so that they've cooled down completely and completely set. Now you may not have to do this. We just ran a knife around the outside just to make sure that we weren't going to get anything sticking. And you can see we have a glass out that is just a little bit smaller than the circumference of the springform pan, and that's where we're going to pop the cheesecake out onto. So we're going to pop that open, and out it comes. Perfect. There we go. Nice and creamy, beautiful, perfectly set. And the same with our chocolate one. So there we go. You can see set all the way through once again. The crust will always have a little bit of crumbs on the outside that will crumble away, but mostly it's stuck together when we cut it. You can see that nice set inside. You can see those nice little circles of chocolate. Everything's come out clean and cooked. It is beautiful and creamy. And that's it. That's the whole thing. Not all that complicated. We, again, made 2 little tiny ones. We made a half recipe and used these great little teeny tiny springform pans, which is the perfect amount for us. So if you like this recipe, please do like and subscribe. And if you have any recipes you'd like to see Chef Caleb try on the channel, please let us know in the comments below. And remember to love your food.